All right, hey folks, we are going to continue working on the Martial Powers playtest campaign that we'll be playing characters through mid-April through July. So give me a second here to check my signal, make sure I'm coming through clear. I'll go through a quick intro, and then we'll get to work on developing some land hazards. So hot second here, checking through. There we go, mic check, 1, 2, 3. There we go, mic check, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, sounds like I'm coming through okay. Cool, let me go ahead and do this. I'm gonna bounce the social media real quick across the internets. And while I'm doing that, I will regale you with my tale, my own little backstory here. So my name's Phil Kearney. Hey, I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, and I publish them online. I have been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition basically since the release of Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica in 2017. Here's the thing here. I'm a pretty big MTG enthusiast, and there have been some plane shift articles that were created on DMsGuild talking about how different Magic the Gathering campaign worlds could be built out as D&D settings. And there was some casual language about color as a theme in in different species and different like alignment and personality attitude sort of stuff that you would have on characters. So when they created the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, I had thought that we would be seeing a focus on a color mana system to replace the 8 schools and spell slots that are typical to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. But we learned that the guiding principle behind 5e in general is to take ideas and then distill them down to work inside the mechanics that already are existing in 5e to reduce system bloat on the amount of books that are required to have to make things work. I appreciate and understand the mentality behind that, but for the past 50 years of D&D, when there was expansions, there were rules that were expanded with it. Even in 5e, like Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Descent into Avernus, they were introducing vehicle mechanics. They added entire chapters about how these mechanics operate for your campaign. That wasn't there for color. So I went about and for about a year created, play tested, and then published a color mana system called the Color Mana Spell Point Variant Rules, or Color Magic System. There are links to that in the description down below here that you can check out. So what this, if you click here, hey, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications when I'm live in the future. And I just posted that I am live on Twitter. I'm at Phil Kearney. If you're still on the platform, you can follow me there if you're interested. And a big shout out to the Ravnica DM community, where I go to sharpen my knives regarding MTG design in Dungeons & Dragons, as well as just Ravnica lore in general for D&D. But down here in the description down below, we have the Martial Powers playtest content and the Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica. My Discord community you can access through my Patreon here in the About page here. See, Discord equals here, which you can go to, and but there you go. So you can access that, and that if you go to my Discord, you'll get access to this this read-only Martial Powers playtest content. The development of the Color Mana Spell Point Variant Rules, which we have here on the DMsGuild, it created the Color Mana system, which replaces the 8 schools of magic with the 5 colors of magic from MTG, replaced spell slots with a mana system that is a more efficient and intuitive spell point system than what's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. All these books have extensive free previews, so check them out. But they focus on spellcasting, which makes sense because of spellcasting. But in Magic the Gathering cards, all creatures and all effects utilize some sort of a mana effect. So I wanted to make sure that all 13 classes in Dungeons & Dragons were capable of using the same mana pool resource to not only express what kind of characters you have using the 5 colors of magic to express your personality, your ideals, your bonds, and your traits, which if you check out Dice Try here on YouTube, he has a fantastic channel that really dives into the lore and language and aesthetics behind personalities and philosophies revolving around the 5 colors of magic. which is excellent for being able to express your character. Instead of using the 9-point alignment system that's typical to D&D, you can instead implement a color mana alignment system where you're a blend of white, blue, black, red, and green philosophies to guide how your character acts, interacts, and feels about different scenarios that you would encounter during your D&D game. And then to wear that on their sleeve by having their mana pool aligned with those colors. If you're Izet, blue and red, you might be careless but genius about creating new ideas and attempting to implement them in new ways that may or may not blow up in your face in the process. So the magic that you would have would be blue and red magic to be able to trigger the effects that you use. There you go. I mean, that's one example. So this playtest document here, it's about 115 pages now, and it has it basically rebuilds all of the martial classes: barbarian, fighter, monk, ranger, rogue, paladin, ranger, rogue, paladin. Of all the class features and all the subclasses to utilize the color mana system instead of what their normal resources would be. It just completely rebuilds the classes, so all 13 classes are using the same color mana language as long or short rest mechanics. So to playtest this, we're going to build a campaign that's hopefully going to be fun for players to take pre-made characters or create their own for the effect, and basically run around inside of a West March hexcrawl campaign where each of the colors of the land are aligned to the colors of land in Magic the Gathering. White, blue, black, red, green. White plains, blue islands, green, white, blue, black, red, green. White plains, blue islands, black swamps, red mountains, and green forests. So in this hexcrawl, you would start here. Each of these smaller squares are 10-mile blocks, which your team, as they go in, can explore, take on the challenges of monsters, enchantments, and hazards, defeat them as a short rest process, basically over the course of a 5-hour period of time to explore, resolve, and advance your movement through the hexes. If you started here and decided to take on this elevated blue hex, then you'd be climbing up hills or climbing atop skyscrapers or moving along islands that are connected by bridges to explore that space before moving on to, like, say, dropping down to the level ground here on a black or white, or caddy moving to another elevated blue island territory that might just be an extension of additional floating islands, or those floating islands may become tethered to toppled skyscrapers. As you traverse the environment, marching westward in a West March campaign, your goal is to start and to find a way out of the Rubblebelt, either through time by just moving, or find a means of connecting with people back at society that can send a rescue team for you. The idea is that you're an ornithopter, basically a carrier craft with a bunch of non-combatant NPCs as well as your team, and the ornithopter goes down in the wastelands and you're stranded there. You're a low-level, third-level characters. You either have to find a way to reach out to civilization and let them know that you survived and you need rescue, or to find your way out yourself. That's basically how the campaign runs. This is survival. The non-combatant characters act as a resource to replace characters that you lose during normal adventuring, which is not unusual for a hexcrawl campaign, as well as to be a background plot hook, which is it's an ongoing escort mission. These non-combatant characters need to be led out of the Rubblebelt, and your characters are the most capable ones to be able to scout ahead, resolve threats, to create an open path, a safe route for the non-combatants to basically drag their luggage through, and hopefully create better circumstances, better resources, maybe better modes of movement over time to be able to continue to traverse the terrain. So each of these smaller squares is basically a 5-hour block of time. So a 3x3 space is a 30-mile block. 15 hours you can move across 30 miles of distance. So you can enter this space, resolve it, short rest, enter this space, resolve it, short rest, enter this space, resolve it, long rest. And if you're able to succeed in overcoming the challenges in all three of those, your caravan can advance from the starting block to this position. You take your long rest, and then you look at, well, I could go here, 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 or I can move parallel to move into another area. And depending on what your scouting is, will reveal what type of lands are ahead, whether they're sunken terrain or elevated or level, and what kind of color are they relying on, and what's the overall environment like as a background sort of default. Like this is a blue tile. This is a blue region with each of these, like blue region, white tile, blue region, sunken blue tile, blue region, level black tile, sunken black tile, elevated blue tile, level ground green tile. So like this would be a blend of blue and green, which is like a Selesnya flavor. This is an elevated blue white region, which is like Azorius territory. It's all been overgrown by wasteland, and nature is taking it back over hundreds or even thousands of years. So the topography of the terrain atop is very much overgrown, like I Am Legend. The city is overgrown with forest and glades and rivers because nature has reclaimed the city. But in Ravnica, the actual surface of the planet is well beyond a mile below the surface. So if you scrape off across the level of the agriculture and natural environment atop, if you delve beneath the surface, now you're in Underdark, which is like compressed and cemented under city that creates all sorts of caverns and layers and dangers that are just literally underneath the surface. So as you're traversing this terrain, elevated terrain has buildings that crop up that have all sorts of entry points into this interior dungeon space. Sunken terrain with the arrow down. Sunken terrain is the same, that there's all sorts of like terraces and striation that can just be open wounds into the undercity, forgotten Underdark dungeons of this Rubblebelt wasteland. So there's all sorts of opportunities to have encounters with all sorts of different wild creatures, sentient species that have nothing to do with the guilds at all. There could be cut off fragments of a guild that have gone rogue and developed their own culture and utilizing magic in their own ways. There's neglected artifacts that could still be like artifact machines or creatures that could be still operating under their last directions. There's like global enchantments that can be infecting a tile or an entire region with its magic that would have to be overcome by your team to make it safe to be able to proceed through. So a lot of really neat, interesting things that can happen in the environments. And it's all hexcrawl styles. So as we go in, we random together what color land it is, what's its elevation like, what creatures, hazards, and enchantments and artifacts may be active within that tile that the team is going to have to challenge and resolve before the caravan can move into it. So that's the premise behind it. We're going to start the campaign at 3rd level. We're going to skip levels, so it'll be 3, 5, 7, and 9 over the course of April into May, June, July, and probably ending in August. Yeah, like 3 or 4 weeks per level, and then bounce up 2 levels just to keep testing low and mid-tier power for how this stuff works. So right now what we're doing is the back end of this document, way down here in the 110s, 100 page plus, is where the actual Rubblebelt campaign toolkit is being built, which is potentially just an extension of the document for DMs to be able to utilize this system. And right now what we're doing is over the past episodes, we've plucked out different types of land cards from Magic the Gathering and taking them and dragged them into the Rubblebelt hexcrawl toolkit that we're building. And right now we're looking for different types of hazards, whether they're environmental hazards, magical hazards, construction things, potential creature lairs that would make sense. And we're just trying to go through and finding, right now we're just looking for 2 type of unique hazards or threats that may exist inside of each tile, different from the creatures that may be inhabiting it. Like, for example, what's a good one? Let's go up to here in the Academy ruins, in the blue elevated slot. There's different types of magical academies that existed in Ravnica. Here's one that got ruined, and the 2 type of hazards that exist are hall monitors, which are basically like enchantment or artifact creatures that would challenge anyone that shows up that doesn't have a hall pass. and living spells, which could be experiments or tests that have been neglected that have taken on a life of their own. These are things, these are like automatons or constructs or oozes or enchantment things that exist that may have protocols and behaviors that are different from, say, a pack of pixies, or maybe an exiled sphinx has made a home of this place and knows how to navigate these threats, but is threatened by the character's presence and may try to drive you away from the area. So the creatures may be working with or in direct opposition or synergize with the hazards that are inside of the Rubblebelt, as well as the different enchantments that we had previously created that create different interesting condition effects that the team has to deal with. And you can check previous episodes for the enchantments that we created. So right now we're just trying to dig through and come up with 2 unique, or maybe not so unique, but 2 different types of hazards that fit the flavor of the land that we're dealing with. So a Dimir Aqueduct. A Dimir, of course, is blue and black. We're currently looking at sunken terrain in the blue tiles, and Dimir Aqueduct is blue-black, so it has a black bend to it. So that's why we have that black moniker there, because we're dealing with a blue tile, but Dimir is blue-black. So I just want to make mention that that's also black mana. So we're looking at like maybe Poison Clouds, which is a black mana effect. Poison Gas Pockets. And maybe like oozes. There you go. Pipe oozes. Ooze-filled pipes. And then hidden cataracts are caves, which are sunken blue regions. What would be some cool stuff like icy cold environment. And what's another interesting one? Unstable stalactites. Stalagmite, stalactite. How does that work? Tights versus mites? Oh, amount of tapering columns. Might. Tight. Might. Tight. I can remember that. Let's see. Is that infrastructure? So this is what, sunken terrain? Blue down. Interesting. So is that infrastructure ruins? So is blue red? It's a blue tile. Normally red doesn't have sunken environments, but this is an infrastructure like steam vents, mana conduits. Yeah, that's a fun idea. Let's see, frayed mana conduits, and how about rogue artifact repair crews? So like the rogue artifact, like these would be like welding bots, or like automated construction robots that are built to maintain the place, but they've gone rogue, incapable of repairing all of the work. Maybe that broke their circuitry and their programming. So now they attack angrily at anyone that messes with the environment because they're so frustrated, like a Wally gone bad. Frayed mana conduits. So mana, and the way that I run Ravnica is that cities are powered by mana, as well as mana is the source. Like people that are attuned to mana, that have a mana pool, can just intuitively tap into these ley lines that exist all throughout Ravnica to be able to siphon magic and then to be able to cast with it. But the city, the society, it's part of their infrastructure. So these ley lines are also tapped by basically circuitry that then act as power lines that feed mana into different structures, homes, civil centers, common areas to be able to provide light or a means of communication. It acts as like a 1990s style dial-up internet. So if you know how to tap into it, you can communicate and access information within the network that it's attached to, normally bound by color. So there's a lot of neat like 90s tech that can exist inside of the game here, all limited by mana. But since the Rubblebelt is all ruined, a lot of these mana lines are severed. And so they're still live wires. They just don't go anywhere. So they kind of just spew energy. So what we would do in a case like this is we'd go to our color mana spell list here. If you check this out on the DMsGuild, certainly if you're inspired to purchasing my stuff, it's certainly appreciated. It certainly, helps me keep the lights on and the internet flowing. But here's the damage types that are associated with each of them. So if we're looking at Zet frayed mana conduits, it could technically be any color, but if we're looking at in the Zet, specifically infrastructure ruins, we'd be looking at red and blue. So like fire probably wouldn't make much sense, but like force energy flowing through the conduits would make sense. Lightning flowing through it could make sense. Psychic energy on the blue side of it could make sense. But since this is that, like this would be like force damage AoE threats. Like whenever you get near one of these power conduits, there's a chance that like you just get hit by a bolt of force energy, which is just a random spark coming off of one of these conduits. That's kind of the idea that goes on behind that. And like the artifact repair crew might be fed and repaired by this force damage. So while it's hurting everyone else, it's actually repairing the artifact machines that would be going rogue and attacking your characters. So that's some of the idea that's behind there. And as these are just ideas that can be, they aren't set in stone. They're just flavor. They're like Ludo narrative chunks that can be adapted and manipulated depending on whether, like if you roll up that you're going to have a hazard, you can look at the hazards that are keyed to each of these lands that you first, when you move into a tile, you're going to determine like, is this a Dimir Aqueduct? If it is, or maybe it's an Zet infrastructure ruin, you'd roll a die. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we go to our map here and we find ourselves here in a sunken blue tile, then we would go to our sunken, it should be blue sunken, not down. Sunken is the language that we ended up with, and elevated instead of up. So blue elevation. So if we're in a sunken blue tile, we'd roll a d6. So I'm just going to roll a handy dandy DM d6 here. I got a 1. So the tile that the team would find here would be waterfalls. And so this is, there's drippy oozes and there's deafening cascades. So the so basically this whole tile is basically water pouring inward further down into underground caverns that the team could potentially decide to spelunk further and further underground. But the further they delve, the further away they're getting from their from the caravan of non-coms that have no business delving into a cavern unless there's some sort of advantage to be gained from it. So delving down in, there should be numerous waterfalls that are just basically pouring into this open, this miles in size, or this pockmark, miles worth of pockmarks that are just pools and draining seepage that are flowing down underground. And there'd be collection points of all sorts of oozes that might like you could have a gelatinous cube, but instead it's like a gelatinous plane that just drips down a couple 100 feet. So if your characters traverse that space, they could get peeled across with a gelatinous ooze that deals acid damage and starts to corrode you, for example. Or like you wade into a pool and it's got a bunch of black pudding at the bottom of it, waiting for something with caloric value to crawl into its space like you and to start rotting away at your flesh. And then the deafening cascades, there's so much water that's just free falling down into these open pits that it's a disadvantage to perception checks that you would make because of the distraction, and that same distraction could potentially disrupt your concentration. So like these are like random hazards or events or tricks and puzzles that the team would have to contend with, while also potentially having to like Disarm an enchantment, deal with rogue artifacts, or fight creatures that have inhabited and adapted to the region around them. So we roll up the tile in general, and then once the tiles are laid, we determine what the flavor of each tile actually is. And then once we get done with flavoring out the tiles, then we actually start building the mechanics into it, which is we would then, the tile procedure, we have that, and then we have the challenges. So we roll a d6, 5 and 6 are environmental hazards, 4 are monsters, 3 is enchantments, and then 1 or 2 out of 6 is going to be a dungeon, which is like a hovel, an elevated, a lair or a cavern or a cave lair of some sort, or just a dungeon, you know, that could also have enchantments, monsters, and their own hazards inside of them as well. So it'd be like a Russian doll. It would be an environment nestled inside of an environment. So as you're going through the tile over land, if you discover a dungeon, you have to clear out the dungeon. Otherwise, when you try to take a long rest, whatever's in that dungeon can creep out and try to attack your caravan as a night encounter until you get enough distance away from it to escape its reach. And depending on the intensity or power of that dungeon depends on what its reach is going to be. So that's the gist of it from there. And once we actually get all this stuff built out, we can start mucking around and actually play testing different types of things. So Simic Cave-In, that's a blue-green environment. It's a cave-in, so like it would have like a broken entry into a larger interior space. That would be maybe something like underground glade, roll green, roll microbiome using green tiles. Like this would be like if you have one of these underground glades, then we would go down to green and then figure out what kind of a green environment it is that we're looking at, either flat or sunken green terrain, to then further modify green sunken, green flat, green elevated, and then red is either flat or elevated. Black is either sunken or flat land. And then blue can be sunken, elevated, or flat land. Simic Cave-In, underground glade, roll microbiome using green tile, green flat or sunken, green sunken tiles, flat or sunken tiles. What's another one? It could be let's see, mutated creatures, hybrid creatures, roll extra monsters with crisis mutations. So like maybe you roll goblins, but they're not just goblins, they're like mutated water breathing, acid spitting goblins, like using crisis tables. So there's ways we can mutate these things, and that's what like Simic mutates the DNA of stuff. That's what they do. That's how their magic works, by mutating your genes. So now we're looking at black flatlands, Orzhov Temple ruins. It can have anti-personnel traps. Let's instead call it tomb traps. And what else? It could be bound spirit guardians is a pretty typical thing to find with Orzhov. Guardians, swamp. Let's see, just flat swamp, just basic swamp. What's cool stuff that we could do with just basic swamp? Quicksand. Poison gas. A blood crypt is a mix of black and red mana. It's even ground. What would like a mausoleum sort of thing. What could that be? It could be animating magic. Maybe not. How about crypt? Blood red. What might we do here? How about it's Rakdos, so it could be demonic servants, demonic guardians. And what's another good one? Maybe cursed. So it could be disadvantage on ability checks in the area because it's cursed terrain, and only if like you're aligned to it or like attuned to the terrain does it not affect you. A Rakdos Pavilion, which is like a collapsed top house or like an arena of some sort. What could it be? What would be interesting hazards for this area? Unstable ground falls into under. What's the oubliettes, sinkholes. What's another fun thing for the pavilion? Thinking black red, Rakdos, sacrifice stuff, graveyard tax, sacrifice, damage, self-infliction. How do you spell oubliette? There we go, oubliette. Almost. If you happen to pop up in chat, go ahead and drop some suggestions if you have them. I'm certainly open to that as an open stand here. If this stuff is intriguing to you, like at the beginning of the video, jump into my Discord if you want and get into the conversations. If you're interested in this stuff, we will have an open call for playtesting. Playtesters are first rostered from paid Patreons. Second is going to be from people that are on my Discord. So that's the hierarchy of seat reservations. So if this stuff is cool to you, jump into my Discord. Say hey, love to have you. Really would love. Unstable sinkholes that lead to oubliettes. And what's another fun thing? How about torture machine constructs? Sentient torture machine constructs. That sounds horrible. I love it. It's got a real maximum overdrive feel to it. Overgrown Tomb is green leaning. That's Golgari by nature. So the black energy is used to recycle itself to grow anew. So Overgrown Tomb would be. How about necrotic spore? Necrotic spore clouds. Stinking. Death Cult Myconids. Marsh Flats is black terrain with white influence. They're plains, so it's like a level space. This would be a lot of like quicksand. Again, what's another interesting one? Marsh Flats, quicksands. How about like lurking how about I want to go swamp monsters, but that's like a green bend or a blue bend. I want to try to stay in the white space, which is what would be an interesting terrain feature. Not necessarily a creature or a plant hazard. Marsh Flats. It's like bogs and sunken ground. Slow movement, slogging through. Lots of high reeds. High reed concealments. It's like everywhere has like overgrown brush, so it's difficult to see anything ahead of time. Black sunken terrain. So we're back into the Demir aqueducts, which we were up on the blue. This would be, let's see, more along the lines of since it's black leaning influence into blue, maybe it could be like life draining. Ooze, moss, what's the word I'm looking for? Fungus. No, fungus is more greenish, but I'm thinking in that space, sludge, life draining sludge, and what's another good one? Blue, black. Blue is water type energy, flow. Black is stagnation, rot. Poison water. Good enough. Crypts, underbelly, depth, darkness, black and black, dark evil, undead, shadow. Shadow Guardians. Unhallowed. Cursed. Saves. Orzhov Treasury is going to have what are they called? Grave robbers, raiders. It would be traps. Thief traps, and it's a treasury, but it's pure black. Maybe cursed or possessed treasure. Treasure is cursed. With spirit. Hunters. So you steal treasure from it, you're hunted down by spirits. So that'd be an appropriate lair type idea. Rakdos mines. So let's see, cave-ins, people left for dead. That would be unresting mine spirits, and just cave-ins. Unstable cave-ins. An overgrown tomb is a black-green energy. So overgrown tomb would be necrotic, neurotic, necrotic, plant, necrotic plants, and overgrown tomb. How about fungus empowered undead zombies? There we go. Golgari Rot Farm would be a Myconid colony. And what might be another good one? Ooze creatures. In addition to anything else that might be done. And now we're into red, elevated red area. Boros Garrisons is white, it's abandoned. What might be good stuff for Boros? A Boros Garrison. It could be animated siege weapons. So radiant damage, force damage, fire damage. These are the three types of energy that we can assume are related to Boros Legion. What might be an interesting threat for this area? Live wires of electricity, of lightning. How about Boros has a lot of floating islands. How about faltering levitation magic? It's like structures, buildings, statues and stuff could be levitating, but the energy is faltering, so it'll drop before it gains enough power, rise back up, and then it drops again. That's an interesting idea. Factory towers, live wires of force and lightning damage. Factory towers. How about rogue construction artifacts, creatures? That's interesting. Stacked housing. Stacked housing can be 1 additional dungeon lair. And what's another interesting thing for stacked housing? It's basically like a high-rise building that's been made into like a vertical dungeon, right? So additional dungeon lair. What could be another interesting stacked housing? It's like a mountain worth of apartments that have all gone dilapidated and collapsing. Right, collapsing structures. Gruul Sky Perch, that's interesting. This would be 1 additional aerial. Okay, Gruul presence. Aerial Gruul presence. What would be another interesting Gruul sort of thing? Aggressive creatures. Like Gruul's all about aggressive creatures and hostile magics. Huh. Aerial Gruul presence. Aerial Gruul lair. Sky Perch. Unstable bridges. Let's do that. Unstable rope bridges. It's like a terrain sort of thing to deal with. Thriving Bluff, which is green and blue. Interesting. It's listed as red as well. Thriving Bluff. Thriving Bluff. Okay, let's go with double monsters. Monsters from green, blue, or red. Let's see. Vertical gaps. Strixhaven and Topple risks. Monsters from blue, green. Thriving Bluff. What an interesting title. Monsters from blue, green, or red. Oh, awakened creatures. Let's do that. Awakened creatures. So there could be smart beasts. So we can roll on beasts, and they would actually have personalities. That would be kind of interesting. Flatland for red. Steam vents. Boiling lakes. Poison gas. Lots of poison gas in the world here. Scorched ruins. Red flatlands. Lava fields. Heated metal. Yeah, fire elemental creatures. It modifies the creatures out of there to be fire elementals. That's cool. Scalding Tarns. That's going to be probably more boiling water. Steam vents. Boiling lakes. Let's just do steam vents. Let's do, yeah. Steve Gouts. Tarns. Tarn is like, what's a tarn again? Define tarn. A small mountain lake. There you go. Boiling water. I could do something specific like steam methods. Like we know there's going to be steam methods there. I don't know if I want to add steam methods to the list of creatures or not, but it's a decent one. Let's go with Steam Weirds. Fog. Terminal moraine. I used to know what a moraine was. Hold on. A mass of rocks and sediment carried down and deposited by a glacier, typically has ridges at its edge or externalities. Ridges are difficult terrain. Traverse. Spine rock knoll. What's a knoll? All these words. Knoll. A small hill or mound. Sure. Spine rock knoll. Razor rock. Slashing damage. And terminal moraine. Terminal moraine. Ridges, so there's like all like Razor Rock, slashing damage for the Knoll. Smoldering Crater. Lava Fields. We'll go with that theme again to match up with the Scorched Ruins. Lava Fields and let's go with Lava Vents. Lava Vents and oh wait, I'm missing on stuff here, huh? So let's need a City Tree. God, this stuff is difficult. I got 14 minutes left and then I'm done. So let's see. Oh, we're getting there, guys. Jesus, we're getting there. We should hopefully have this done tomorrow. Then we can start, then we can flesh out the creatures, and then we can start building random hexes and start building these things together to create environments. So Terminal Moraine. It's the end point of Moraine. Smoldering Crater, Dehydration. Spine Rock Knoll. Terminal Moraine. Why is this sticking to my cross so bad? It's such a weird terrain type. This is just flat redlands. Lightning, fire, force, thunder. Spine Rock Knoll. Glacier Bed, huh? I'm really sticking on this one. Let's see. Spine Rock Knoll. Boy, I'm really sticking on that. How about, I don't know, Earth Elemental. Creatures are Earth Elementals. That feels lazy, but let's just do it. Razor Rock. Slashing damage. I like that. Spine Rock Knoll. I'm thinking like an environment of like rolling hills, like individual mounds that are separated by lower surfaces. Like rocky crevasses between the knolls. the grass is atop the knolls, but the rocky interior, like the slopes, the rocky slopes don't have any vegetation on them. Oh, let's just go with cutting wind tunnels. It's like, because it has all these ridges that define like almost like steps, like different like how sand has like all these wind lines, right? And wind courses through those like how to put it? Like it's a series of sharpened thickets that create channels, and traversing across the ridges damages, but going along the channels has high winds that can also cut at you with grit and cause disadvantage on concentration and locks you into a space. But I kind of like that. That feels really, really cool. Selesnya City Trees, Simic Housing Ruins, Gruul Sky Perch, another Sky Perch, Aerial Lair, Wooded Foothills, sure, Treetops, Green Sunken Jungle Basin, that could be Shambling Mounds, and fever diseases. That's fun. Slippery karst. What's a karst? Jesus. I used to know these things. Define karst. Landscape underlain by limestone, which has eroded by dissolution, producing ridges, towers, fissures, sinkholes. Okay. Difficult terrain. Slick, difficult terrain, and sinkholes. Another Simic Cave-in. Mutated creatures. Rock slides. No. Mutated creatures and something, feels like something mana based. We'll go with Insect Hive and Ooze Colonies. And there should be Ooze Colonies. Poison Gas. Hive Ruins. Insect hives, insect colonies. That's a good one. Ooze colonies, insect colonies. What else? Golgari Hive Ruins. Rock Quicksands. Rock Pool Quicksands. That sounds good. Simic Cave-in. Back to the Simic Cave-in. Mutated creatures. Simic Haven. So a Simic Lab or a Krasis center gets crushed. The mutated creatures within makes sense. There has to be something more. Living spells. Living transmutation spells. That's fun. Like it'll mutate, like you get, like this thing attacks you and it starts to change self or alter self or polymorph you. That's fun. Sunken Verdant Catacombs. Myconid Colonies. How about Spore Undead? Necrotic Plant Creatures. Plant infested undead, undead infested plants. That's basically how that works. Forests are thorny thickets. Oversized creatures. Thorny thickets and the tranquil thickets. That makes sense. So what else has the forest got? Oversized creatures and awakened creatures. Mouse Ritter, incoming Mouse Ritter. There you go. Oh man, we're almost done. And we're almost out of time too. We're definitely going to get this done next week. And then we should be able to start digging into creatures. That'll be fun. Tranquil Thickets, Thorny Cricket Thickets. Suppressed Sound. Disadvantage to Perception. Concentrate to cast verbal spells. That's fun. Vivid Grove. Radiant. Radiant Lights. Vivid Grove. Vivid Grove. Maybe like a color spray effect? Vibrant terrain. Disadvantage to stealth. That'll work. Green Flat, Simic Ruins. More mutated creatures, of course. How about Krasis Colony? Krasis Colony and how about Rogue Surgical Artifact creatures? Like they'll suture you even though you aren't wounded? How about that? That sounds horrible. Let's see, Selesnya Temple. That's white energy with green. Let's go with Fey Lair, like pixies and shit. And awakened plants. Selesnya Gardens. Poisoned fruits. That doesn't feel right. Assassin Vine Colonies and Selesnya Gardens. Ugh, more awakened plants. That's a thing they have going, right? It's a thing they do. Let's say giant fly. No. Oh my god. That's all we have left? Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to leave it here. We hit our marker. It's time for me to go. My lunch is over. This little patch here is all that we have left in the elevated green terrain. So some of this stuff was a little redundant. And if we can come up with better ideas as it goes along, great. But these are just little nuggets to spur our attention. So I'll be back tomorrow to work on this some more. We'll finish up these elevated green terrains, and then we'll start fleshing out what kind of creatures can be in each of these color environments. And then on Friday, we could probably finish up the creature lists and potentially start building some sample hexcrawl tiles. So, all right. Hey, fantastic stuff. If this stuff is cool to you, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications. I'm here 11 times per week. I'm in the mornings creating Eberron creature tokens for the Crystals of Mabar adventure. At lunchtimes like this on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, we're doing game development for different toolkits or DM campaign stuff. And then Mondays and Thursday nights, like tonight, we're building massive ships for the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration document that we published. That's currently in the bestseller list of the DMsGuild, so you can check in the list down below for all the different stuff that we have on DMsGuild that you can pick up, take a look at through the previews and purchase if you think they're cool. Catch me on Discord if you want to jump through there. You can support me through Patreon if you wish. Catch me on Twitter at Phil. And again, like, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the other side. Thanks a lot for being here. I'll be back in about, it's 3 o'clock now. I'll be back in about 4-ish hours. So I'll see you guys then.